Ability podcast. And I'm Kurt Roskopf, co-founder of the podcast and of the network. And I am pleased to provide you today's show. And so we have different things going on. We were contacted by Maria Zaney, our friend over in Scotland. And I did messenger about, about welcoming feedback if she was going to join us today. I'm waiting for word on that. And then we got word from Denise Vargas. And so I am anticipating that she might make it before the end. She is doing an activity with her parents. And so she's going to take care of her family time and then see if there's time left to join us. So we are on standby. I invited Captain Adam. We have Emily Gulmer is serving at the Integral Conference Planning Committee meeting. And so that's an event that'll be happening in the fall, and they're diving in and setting the stage for what's going to happen with the Integral Conference in 2022. So if that meeting would end before the hour, Emily will be on here. And we were just talking with Barbara Weinstein, and she is in a training provided by Tony Robbins. So I encouraged her to stick with Tony Robbins. She kept her devotion here and offered to help, which we always like to have, but I encourage her that if she's got the Tony Robbins opportunity to just go ahead and stay with that. And if they take a break or something, we might have a cameo appearance by Barbara. So we're kind of split many directions, a lot going on today. We're producing this January 29th, 2022. It's 2:06 on my computer clock right now on a Saturday afternoon, and we are on continued countdown to February 22nd, which is our 222 to Save 22 event. We do have this logo that was dressed up by Denise Vargas with Live Creatively Inc. And so that means that we're about 24 days from being the day of the event in Wisconsin Dells for 200 people. And beyond that, it's an online event. So it's a hybrid event. We're hoping we get a wildly amazing worldwide audience for this event. We're going to be doing podcasting. We have Zach Clayton from Community Pay It Forward is orchestrating 22 hours of podcasting. So we're calling all podcasters to be in contact with us and to be a part of this campaign, responding to suicide ideation experienced by veterans. The United States Veteran Affairs reported a decade ago that the concern was there for 22 veterans a day being lost to suicide. And today we're up to the average of 37 deaths by suicide for veterans. So over 150% what it was 10 years ago, which is wildly concerning epidemic. And so we're taking it on at a worldwide level here at the World of Ability. And with our connections with the Happy Neighborhood Project, we have become a proud HMP member through the Disability Channel, and provided to me through my service as ambassador of the Disability Channel and volunteering to be a co-host with HMP and becoming a captain. And now the news was brought out yesterday that I was able to meet with Fong Vo, Director of Happiness at the Happy Neighborhood Project, and the official commencement of my role as ambassador has begun. I have a training, half-hour training with Fong Vo, Director of Happiness, in particulars of the role of mentor on Monday. And we go on and building this great future with the Happy Co-op, presently over 1,500 members of the co-op, and you can check it out, thehappycoop.com, and you can join for free. It's set up to facilitate the paid membership opportunity, the share member package, and to process that credit card transaction. You can switch that to the free and just go ahead and register. Come on in, and with the email address you put there, it gives you a token link. You click and bam, you're in your dashboard for the Happy Co-op. In just a half a year, we've gone from launching in July of 2021 to the end of January here, emerging into the top 10% of all co-ops. And if we look at that and imagine going from 1,500, adding 8,500, 8,500 more members, that's just going to wildly amp up our presence in the cooperative community. And so I happen to also be a working board member of Humans United in Mutual Aid Networks. I work very closely with the president of the board, the working board, Humans United in Mutual Aid Network. Humans is what the acronym amounts to. And with that, it's a co-op as well. So we are really diving into this cooperative format and just making a plunge in working in the world and serving the world to, as most all of us want to be a part of, to continue to make the world a better place. So here at the World of Ability, we are all about the opportunity through bringing people with disabilities more and more into what I've been pronouncing as the falsely claimed mainstream society, but there's also mainstream media. So that falsely claimed mainstream media resemblance, in that it doesn't resemble the major portion of people with disabilities, and major being still minority group, but it's the largest minority group. 1 in 4 people of population is a person with a disability. So let's ask ourselves, is that how we're experiencing it with media and with society and so forth in a lot of the marketplace opportunities and activities, and with movers and shakers and so forth, our business meetings. Let's look at our faith communities and our service life. My family and I, or my wife and I, were members of Optimist International through our local club here, the Sussex, Lisbon, Land and Butler Optimist Club. The club has, as with a lot of clubs, with the international program of the communications contest for the deaf and hard of hearing, that allows students who are deaf or hard of hearing to have a chance at the scholarship. But even with doing these service projects for people with disabilities, the idea is getting into the membership and leadership with these boards of directors, the opportunity to do this with people with disabilities. And this is what came up a decade ago through the World of Water Skiing. And in the World of Water Skiing, my family and I had an opportunity to take a gentleman who has cerebral palsy and is a wheelchair user, power wheelchair user, and a great candidate for our sit ski that we have in our local ski club. And our ski club's been taking adults with disabilities for 33 years. And so 22 years into it, a decade ago, the leadership struggled in part. A couple of our friends, one happened to be president of the club, the other board member, and coming to me, talking to me about so much about how this was not going to happen. And it was something that was already set to happen by our show director, and handful of other water skiers ready to take our community member out water skiing in our ski show. And so this is the disruption that got my family and I to respond. And it was a wild journey. We, in 6 years, working with these individuals with disabilities. So basically an accomplishment in the disability community, creating a great partnership with the Wisconsin Water Ski Federation, which then had great support across the USA Water Ski and Wake Sports community, and even in IWWF, International Wakeboard and Water Ski Federation. Just really became a sensational turnaround in the world of water skiing, and for sure locally to me and across the state that I live in, Wisconsin. So this is the type of turnaround, disruption, and adjustment that I've been working on for very conservatively, for sure, the last handful of years, and cross training and branching off. Initially, it was 7 years ago, 6.5 years ago, I guess, really. Learned about the Adaptive Sports and Rec Expo and participated in that as the sport of water skiing, brought the sit ski out to the parking lot, part of this whole event at Nathan Hill High School in Wisconsin. And so they were using the indoor pool, and there was stuff all over the place, stuff on the lawn. They had seated tennis or wheelchair tennis going on. So basically, it was 60 partners that made the Everybody Plays Adaptive Sports and Rec Expo happen. 50 versions of adaptive sports and rec that guests were experiencing on that day event. And it went for 2 years. It was largely powered by the Medical College of Wisconsin. It emerged out of the VA hospital, and so veteran organizations were involved, or disabled American vets and so forth. And so really opened my eyes quite a bit to, kind of what water skiing projected me into. And so it's an interesting crusade that we're on. So when I refer to the Happy Neighborhood Project, that's where I built off of my business acumen and went into the Happy Neighborhood Project, which is free, happy business networking, the happiest place on earth for business people and spreading happiness around the world. The question really became for me, the real test was, how are we doing making this happy experience available for people with disabilities? So, late March into April, talked to the founder of the Happy Neighborhood Project, the Chief Happiness Officer, Edwin Edeberry, and brought this ask to him that we create an inclusive event, or an event that really resembles the inclusion that we want, and to demonstrate it through one of the Zoom meetings being named HMP Ability, and then to have a co-host team that really portrays this way that people with disabilities can, be leaders and fully involved, and all of the culture of inclusion, accessibility, accommodation, the commitment, to it all, really led by the co-host team of HMP Ability. Four co-hosts, I think at the present time, but it's a unique group. But I also, in terms of the 4 co-hosts team model, I also have a divergence from that with HMP Wisconsin, Minnesota. We have 5 co-hosts with HMP Wisconsin, Minnesota. The 5th one John Bedard brought aboard with the intention to first be a supportive substitute to the other four co-hosts, but then to also drive a pathway to bring back separate H&P Minnesota groups. So we had an H&P Wisconsin, Minnesota, or a separate H&P Minnesota group. And then we merged the two together to help cultivate more response from the state of Minnesota for this free happy business networking on Zoom format. And so I bring that up because I was just going to mention that H&P Ability also is designed to have 5 co-hosts for that co-host team. So just showing this commitment at the Happy Neighborhood Project for attracting professionals with disabilities and cultivating professionals with disabilities, to look at how people with disabilities are unemployed or employed in a capacity where the networking would be a moot point, that the value of that individual to represent their employer at a networking event would not be in the scope of that job. So part of this is to cultivate that people with disabilities can more favorably choose to go ahead and be a part of the business community in this way. So it's a business community. I'm mentioning Zoom, and then there's also Clubhouse events. Our very own Emily Gallmer, who's our podcast engineer, and so she's running the recording and doing the live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, while she's also meeting with the Integral Conference. And so multitasking there. So that's kind of what we're doing, is giving it all we've got, and and working with people to the greatest extent of their ability. And a lot of times it takes making adjustments and adapting and being accommodating and being flexible. So but I always appreciate that when there is a challenge or something arises, that that we just coordinate and plan and communicate, and that's what we experienced here today. So again, as foretold, we did share the the communication from Denise Vargas that she was going to come in a little later today, which works out just fine. And so she made it into our Zoom connection and is joined with us now live and for the recording. Denise at livecreativelyinc.com. Always live creatively. Redesign your life. Live creatively. So Denise Vargas, I know you're transitioning from another activity. How are you doing, Denise?
I am doing well, thank you. And I am so sorry I am late. Late to all the fun, because this is always fun to be here with you guys. Yeah. So what did I miss? Fill me in.
Well, you missed basically a co-founder's message by yours truly, me, and just talking about the World of Ability podcast as I typically do. I didn't yet enumerate, as I tend to do, to really set the stage for any new visitors, that I get the conversation started through asking people to think of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, people in the community of people with who are deaf or hard of hearing, people who are blind or visually impaired, and people with physical disabilities. And then, kind of using a few demographics to get the conversation started, not to overshadow the other important demographics. But I think there's some agreement that if we think of stereotype, I think those 4 demographics stereotype the disability community. And then there's a lot of other disabilities responded to in the Americans with Disabilities Act. So a lot of other people thought of, I think of, learning about that the Americans with Disabilities Act protects the situation of like when you think of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all these signals, that there can be like a sensitivity to EMF, electromagnetic fields, and so forth. And depending on which environment you're in, it's basically saying that, if you're a facility that takes advantage of federal funds and somebody needs to use your building and you're using a lot of remote control or wireless and stuff like that, you're powering up a lot of electromagnetic fields, and that's interfering with somebody's access to a program that takes on federal funds, that is that's not allowed by the Americans with Disabilities Act. So you have that, and then you have chemical sensitivities. I know with events at the Independent Living Center in Milwaukee, Independence First, when you go to events there, all of their events show that, please refrain from wearing perfumes and being respectful to other people at Independence First, that we don't want their participation disrupted because of what you're wearing chemically, so there's that. And I told my water ski story about how Adam was sent home dry when he intended to go out onto the lake and go skiing. He didn't ski at all, and he was sent home dry. But then we turned that around and sextupled the access to water skiing here in Wisconsin, and talked about you leading H&P ability and so on and so forth. And I was trying to recall, are we at 4 co-hosts right now? We're seeking a 5th one, or did you get to 5 co-hosts for H&P ability?
We are still seeking a 5th one. So if anyone is interested in becoming a co-host for the Happy Neighborhood Project, absolutely contact us. We have a lot of fun. You'll meet some awesome people. You will develop leadership skills. So most definitely connect with us. And you can actually email me at denise@livecreativelyinc.com if you are interested in learning more. And it's so funny, Kurt, that you mentioned the chemicals. I myself am highly, highly allergic to all scents, detergents, perfumes. It's just so much. And, particularly with personal care attendants who come to help you in your home, it is a struggle to always try to explain to them that you are highly allergic. And sometimes, often people think that you just don't like that particular scent. And it's not. Years ago, before I became very sensitive, I loved perfume. Matter of fact, I was an Avon representative for many years. And when you open up the box, even if no one ever ordered perfume in that particular order, there would always be a scent of the perfume in the box, because it's a cosmetic company. And trying to explain to outsiders who don't experience that, it's very, very difficult. It's something that, and for everyone it's different, but for me, it tightens up my whole bronchial area, and you just feel like you can't breathe, almost like when someone has asthma. And there's really nothing that you can do until you're away from the situation. So it's interesting that you had mentioned that even though it's there and it's something that we try to help others acknowledge, it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. So thank you for bringing that up. And yes, stereotypes, crazy stereotypes, particularly those that have a disability where perhaps they don't have motor skills, that they can control. Maybe they're moving around. I remember one of my friends, he has CP, cerebral palsy, and he walks, but when he walks, he often says that people mistake him for someone who is drunk and who is just kind of walking and moving around all over the place and losing his balance. And then when he speaks, because he does have a little difficulty speaking, they automatically think that he's slurring his words and he's been drinking, and they just don't understand that he has a disability that affects his motor skills, affects his speech. So people are very quick to judge or just, it's crazy. We just need to bring more awareness to people. And which is why if I'm in the street and someone wants to know something about me, particularly kids, kids are so curious. Absolutely, just come and ask me. And I'd much rather you ask me than just assume, right? Because we know what they say about assuming, never assume. So yeah. But thank you for bringing all that up. We definitely need more awareness.
Very good, very good. So to kind of build off, branching off, like kind of getting off topic in a way, but just kind of my unusual humor is when you were talking about, the allergies and the sense of stuff, and I just got to thinking how I know you are also allergic to, or you have a low tolerance of absence of sense too, that whole nonsense thing, right?
Yes.
So I just had to do that since it came into my mind. I just had to share so everybody gets to know how I think, which I hope is a little entertaining. But while you were talking, we got a call from our friend Zita. So she's been trying to figure out how to join us here. So it's like we're putting her through a vetting process, but she's talking to Sue. And so if we're successful today, we will have Zita joining us from the World of Women podcast. But, Denise, while we're waiting for Zita to come on, do you want to set the stage? I just mentioned World of Women, and you've been part of helping that get off the ground. Want to give everybody your purview on what is the World of Women podcast?
Oh my gosh, yes. The World of Women. And wow, don't you just love that? Wow, World of Women. Zita is a wonderful, wonderful soul. She actually is a midwife, and she is always trying to promote health in women who are, pregnant, and the importance of setting the right atmosphere for when a child comes into the world. She is just such a beautiful soul. And her show, wow, World of Women, she has all these amazing women come on and speak about their experiences, not just with childbirth, but just with anything that we women experience in life, relationships, work, the balance between work and your relationships. She is just such a phenomenal person. And when you hear her speak, I'm so glad she's going to be on the show, because when you hear her speak, you're gonna feel like you knew her forever. She's just that sweet and welcoming. She's really got that welcoming spirit. So I am really excited to have her on and share, her thoughts on everything regarding women. And here she is. She is coming on.
There we go. So
Zita,
Zita, welcome. Take the time, Zita. We know you're just getting settled in, starting out, but if your ears are ringing, it's only because Denise was talking about you while you were working on connecting, and Denise kind of gave her rendition of how wonderful the World of Women podcast is. And we know that graphic that's behind you in your screensaver or your virtual background that Denise put that together for us and for you. And so Zita, welcome, and go ahead and give a little bit more of your background. We're talking a little bit about how I would say, I don't want to, this isn't paraphrasing exactly what Denise said, but I always share that, you know, Zita, I know you as somebody who's very devoted to children. And, you know, in that, I got out of my initial follow-up conversation with you before we did the World of Women idea. I really cultivated that it's almost like your trust is that if we do a better job in the world in giving women the resources needed and giving the support and the role and favor to women, that's going to translate to healthier kids, more vibrant children. It's like a lot of groups are dealing with at-risk youth. There's professionals out there dealing with adverse childhood experiences. You know, there's a whole realm of concerns around children. And so the World of Women podcast, I find, you know, I wanted to work with you on because there's a lot of women out there. There's a lot of men. There's a lot of people who could be taking this type of approach. And I'm trusting there are, but I personally haven't experienced that the way you bring it forward. And I think it's so effective and it's so useful, you know, because it's so practical and it just hits it square on the peg, as we say, you know, on if this is an area of our concern. And growing up, you know, I was born in the 70s, 1971, I was born. And when I grew up as a kid, I grew up in a community and people around me teaching me that one of our mores, like one of the most important things you could think of in life is we got to be good to our women and children. That was ingrained to me the first decade of my life. And I think you and I spoke to that. Yes, it's still there. There still is a great tradition in that, but there's also in many pockets of life, there are things whittling away at it, unfortunately. And so it's, you feel a great need to fulfill this. And in business, they say, find a need and fill it. And I believe you're doing that. And that's at the heart of the World of Women podcast. And I'm looking at you and I think your nonverbal cues here are like, yes, you agree with that. Am I doing all right?
Yes. So true. Yeah, so true. I think you nailed it. You nailed it because and I know that sometimes we got all carried away with what is going on in the world and trying to really just put off the light as they, you know, as problems arise, but not really devoting time to say, wait a minute, where is this coming from? Where's the source of this problem? And that's what I have found in my profession as a midwife, that whatever issues we're really battling with today with our youth, with our world, it all stems down from not really paying attention for what is valuable. And that is taking care of a young woman who is growing up and going to raise a family. How do we nurture her into becoming the person she's called to be? Because whether we like it or not, she's going to bring out whatever that was given to her. There's no mincing of words in that. You know, if we support women, support our young people, they're going to really make the world a better place by reproducing what they received. So say a young woman, and a lot of them these days are not even getting the education, the home training, the family support they need. What are we seeing is, what we're seeing right now is a lot of teenagers getting pregnant, babies having babies. So that's when I call them, whenever I go to them, I'm like, you're a baby and now you're having a baby, and now I'm dealing with two babies. One is older than the other. So the thing is, how do we really provide support that will really foundational support through family that will really help us to build the whole nation from the root, from the grassroots. And now children, we know there are a lot of abandoned kids everywhere. And some people, nonprofit organizations are really helping to nurture these kids, but there's an extent and there's a difference between family and like institutional based or raised kids. And that's a good job people are doing. But if we tackle this issue from the root, it will really help us in the long run. And that's really my passion. That's actually my baby, to sing it like a sing song to the world, to let them understand what is more valuable and to put value to it. Let's just rally around, men and women, to understand what is really important and pay more attention to what's important, because that's the only way out. There's no option. So
Well
the World
said.
of Women is a place that we're gonna be all the time talking about this, helping ourselves, educating one another, sharing, supporting, making sure that this tribe we've established will be able to move it forward in the right direction.
It's beautiful. And
Yeah,
if I
there
can
you
also just, if I can also just add that while it is wow, the world of women, men are absolutely welcome. Men
Mhm.
actually have their own little viewing party, if you will,
Yes.
while the women are out speaking, and men learn so much
Mhm.
from what's going on. Don't you agree, Kurt? Because I know that you're in the show, you know, in the back end there, kind of viewing with the other guys. Tell us from the male perspective, what do you think when you're listening?
Mhm.
Well, first of all, I want to take advantage of the fact, Denise, that you brought this forward, because I was entertained actually by the arrangement we had with the podcast where we arranged with Emily that, all right, Emily, go ahead and put Denise into the breakout room with the guys, because the way I understood it, Denise, you wanted to see what the experience was from the male perspective and what was going on over there. And so, but I think the reason that I talked through this format with you, Zita, was because I think with the world of women, I guess since we're at the World of Ability podcast, what I might say is the disability community taught me about nothing about us without us. And it really anchored into my mindset that if we're going to solve this issue around marginalization and how people with disabilities might be ostracized, or we brought up cancel culture in past episodes, you know, if we're going to resolve these issues, it takes people outside of the disability community to pay attention to and learn from people with disabilities. So I really wanted to check in, you know, Zita, I checked in with you and I was like, what do you think of this? Because, you know, I'm sitting here as a guy thinking of stuff. And so from a women's perspective to say, okay, this is World of Women. So when our audience views it, they're seeing women gathered together to bring forward an issue that is concerning women from a women's perspective. And like you say, a tribe, you know, the female aspect of the tribe, and then to set the stage for what are we responding to? What is the show all about, to represent it by women? And so to have the men in a breakout room and have that male component not a part of it, you know, as we're bringing forward, like, what are we addressing? And then to close the breakout room on Zoom and have us come in and we're following the lead of women, you know. So if we really think of our human history, you know, this is something we're healing from. You know, we're healing from this unequally yoked history to say that, there's a history of women being enslaved to men, ostracization of women and cancel culture of women in some sense, that, the mantra I heard so much in my life is the good old boys club. How many times did I hear it, the good old girls club? It's like, so this is a healing process that we can move forward on in terms of how are we going to bring forward the best from our population, is to definitely look at the gender perspective and the false binary. I work with the leader out of Madison. Her name is Stephanie. And, when I got inspired to, plunge into work of the Mutual Aid Network, she was interviewed. And one of the things that Stephanie addressed was this idea of a false binary. And we were just talking about stereotypes before you came on, Zita.
Okay.
And so this is what I hail from. I hail from the fact that I spent decades being given a false perception of what's best from the perspective of many other demographics. So whether it's the demographic of people with disabilities, whether it's women, even children, even thinking of that growing up as a child, like my role before I became an adult, I learned so much in the last 10 years of my life. It's that old thing. Like if I had it to do over again, that whole thing of hindsight is 2020. And so this becomes the turning point, the cusp of, okay, before it was ignorance, but now I'm aware. And now we got the thing of the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know.
Right.
And the more I feel this draw to the entire population of the planet, because it opens me up to say, I am one of 7.8 billion people on Earth. So how much can I really speak to the ultimate truth? How much can I really represent humankind? There's an interdependency to say, yes, I'm going to practice it for what the world has provided me and how well I have received it. And in my practice of bringing it forward, I'm going to keep that process going, but to be a little humble, to say that I'm lacking from the perspective of so many other people's lives. And so the three of you, Emily and you, Zita and Denise, the three of you provide me so much perspective that if I just spent my time and did my work alone, I would be so far less effective. Right now I'm celebrating that yesterday Fong Vo made me a mentor at the Happy Neighborhood Project. It's people like the three of you ladies that make my role, it comes forth through my name, but I feel it represents the success of 1,500 co-op members and I think thousands of others that have touched into the same thing I've been able to experience. And so it's a little bit of, kind of diffusing the ego. And it's something for me to speak to because, I can say I come from a past where I practice egotism and it comes forward in me a little bit. And I guess maybe it gets hidden a little bit when I'm putting on a show, because I can kind of come forth with a little bit of ego and it can add to the entertainment value. But when I'm trying to address these humanitarian things, that really doesn't, it's not helpful. It's not useful to come in there. The people that we serve are as equally important, equally, there's nothing lesser about the person. And I've addressed it to the point of even scripturally, if we refer to sacred scripture and we refer to a Messiah telling followers that, what you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. And there's a wonderful message in that, but there's also immortal limitation being spoken forth. So if you look at an immortal force being available and something like that is being said, it speaks to mortal limitation. Because if we mortals weren't limited to understand that of 7.8 billion people, there's not a one person on this planet that is less than any of the other 7.8 billion people. But because of these cultures of kings and queens and strata and status and, all this stuff to say like, ooh, like I'm all that. And, you're a peasant, you're lowly. As soon as we start to create this differentiation and that I'm celebrating that we're bringing the world of women today together with the world of ability, because the disability community, the disability advocates and activists, the disability organizers taught me that there's intersectionality.
Yes.
So they say in our country, to be a woman of color with a disability, and in the LGBTQ community, there's these things that it's like cards get stacked against you, because at least in the United States of America, and in parts of it, I don't want to totally stereotype and ruin the great perspective and practices of many of our fellow Americans, but there is like a ginormous, alarming number of cases in our entities across the land that we know this is an issue to address. And so that's what I think we represent right here, right now, is this chance to, through World of Women, World of Ability, and whoever wants to come into this Transform You Media Network platform, and with the World of Ability Podcast Network, Zita, you're part of 12 podcasts that we support now. And by the end of the year, we're aiming to be at 22 podcasts, which is an arbitrary goal based on 222 to Save 22, which is saving the lives of our veterans. And the particular perspective of how many of these veterans, if we say we lose the lives of 37 veterans a day on average, how many of those are women? Right? So Zita, where are your thoughts right now?
Yeah, honestly, I think the first time you and I met, we were talking about, I think I thought about it. Let me step a little bit back. Before I decided to meet with you, to talk to you, I did reflect on that word of ability. And I'm like saying to myself, honestly, my experience at that time with HMP, which I shared with you, was that kind of feeling too, of a woman, African woman, Black woman, in a situation that is so competitive. Even though it's a nonprofit business, it is still a business. And being with that whole history behind me, and trying to compete with people that I know have that, whether they're consciously or unconsciously, that bias is there, and you are kind of projecting yourself to a whole group that you're aware has where they are with you, and both individual and global, trying to push through. And I'm like, okay, where do I find a little bit of connection, or that I can identify to start to share my story? So when I said at some point I wanted to honestly leave HMP, but I'm like, okay, I am not the only one there who is struggling, but I think what I need to find out is who is struggling with me? Who can I identify with? And when I talked to you and Emily, oh my goodness, Kat, the way you approached it, I said, you have something about words. I think you're gifted that way, and please keep it up, because there are very few of you in this whole wide world. Because I have really traveled a little bit, and I'm speaking from that, background. That there are people who can understand you even when you're not saying it. Your thoughts are being projected in such a way that you're like, wow, did he really read my mind? So when I did talk to you, that was the way I felt after our call conversation. I identified with the disability in the world, or the so-called disability that we are putting on people, labeling people. And I'm like, okay, this is a place, this is a spot I feel at home to start with, to share my own challenges. So I did see that, even though I did not verbalize it, but you really, the way you put everything together, you articulated my thoughts and projected it. And not only that, you gave me the tool to run with. You said, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? You even put it the time, you put the date, you said, and then you said, okay, it's like, okay, this is what I've shaped for you now. You can run with it if you like. And I grabbed that opportunity because I saw it as the gift of Thanksgiving, because it was few days to Thanksgiving that we had that meeting. I saw that as a divine intervention, a divine opportunity. So yes, it was in my mind. I did identify that this is where I belong and where people will really see me and know, yes, she belongs there. And she's pointing us to that platform. And the people have to really collectively look at it. Because honestly, this is where we have to start from. If we really honestly want to change our world, we can't look anywhere else. So thank you. That was it. Yeah, that was it.
Awesome. Wow, what a powerful way to come into this final segment here. Denise, I'm taking a guess that you've got something to say from what I said, and then Zita probably piled it on. What do you got, Denise?
Oh my gosh, I have so much. First of all, 1,000% Zita. I agree with you. Kurt does have a special way of speaking and connecting. And Emily just, she is so amazingly sweet and helpful. And between the two of them, we are in the presence of true awesomeness. It's just, you want something done, speak to them because they are phenomenal. And what really hit me and just, I kept opening up my mic because I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. When we were talking about world of ability and challenges, and when I think of the word disability, it just simply means an inability to do something, right? Whether in my case, it's an inability to walk, right? But we all have challenges. We all have an inability to do something. And together we can accomplish so much because that's what it's all about. It's knowing when to ask for help and then really relying on your fellow brothers and sisters. Like you mentioned, there's over 7 billion people in the world. We are all somehow, some way gonna have similarities. And we are actually more alike than we are different. So I just love how it's all coming together and we are a world of ability. We are wow world of women.
Yes.
We are just all living creatively in this world. So
Yes.
yeah, I love this.
Awesome.
This was one of my favorite episodes. And I have a lot of favorite episodes, but this is definitely one of them.
All right. Thank you very much, Denise. Yeah, and thank you, Zita, for being here today. I want to refer to a link tree that Emily has put together for us. And if we're familiar with Linktree, linktr.ee/wow podcast, WOWPODCAST. check out that link tree. And again, linktr.e/wow podcast. And it's showing that the weekly podcast is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's got a button to be a guest, and the YouTube channel, LinkedIn page, LinkedIn group, Facebook page and group, Zita's Healthy Beginnings, a business system and training program, and Zita's link tree. Boy, you could get on a journey with that in itself. So Zita, anything else you'd like to add? This is the conclusion of the show, but I do a little something called a minute to win it. So we give you 1 minute to give us that final added thought. What do you got, Zita?
Yeah, what I got is all gratitude for this opportunity, for inviting me to come join you guys in the World of Ability podcast, and also the opportunity given for me to voice my ID, to reclaim my similarity as well as my uniqueness with the world through the World of Ability podcast and World of Women podcast. Thank you.
You're welcome. So everybody out there, please support the World of Women podcast crusade, and like and share and comment, and let's just get all into it. Let's make this the year of women with the World of Women podcast. So Denise Vargas, I'm co-hosting with you, co-moderating, so I'm not really here to set rules or limits, but you want to run with this minute to win it idea, and if you want to show leadership and make it 10 minutes, go for
it. First of all, I just want to say again, thank you, Zita, for sharing you are such a beautiful soul, and the energy that you bring out and share with us, it just energizes all of us. So I want to definitely thank you for that. Also, fun fact to our listeners, Zita and I share the same name. My middle name is actually Zita. So that was really fun to find another Zita in the world. It's especially one that's such a beautiful soul. And yeah, we just want to, again, if you guys have not come to the Happy Neighborhood Project, come and visit us. We have an amazing time there. And, you also have to come. If you like any events at all, come to Friday's worldwide event so you can meet the Chief Happiness Officer, Edwin Edeberry. You're just going to love him too. Yeah, listen, I just want everyone to stay happy, stay positive, always live creatively, come back every week, have fun with us. And I think that's about it, Kurt. Take it away.
All right, so be ready, because yours truly is going to come up with a nice song, and it's going to be a little something like this. Living La Zita Loca. All right, here we go. I'm Special K, and I'm out of here. You can call me anytime right here, 262-372-1SKI. And that email address from the original radio show that got me started 5.5 years ago, abilitymknow@gmail.com. And great appreciation to Emily Gulmer. Take us on out of here, Emily. If you're tied up with that integral conference, just go ahead and turn off the recording. We're out from Transform You Media Network.